Fairfax Media Limited is one of the largest media companies in Australia and New Zealand, with investment in newspaper, magazines, radio and internet. John Fairfax purchased the Sydney Morning Herald in 1841 and the family retained control of the business until late in the 20th century. Products and divisions. Fairfax has a portfolio of leading online products, including the digital news brands, SMH.com, an Australian news site, and AFR.com, a financial news site. The group also has leading online marketplaces including Domain.com, for real estate, and Drive.com, for motors. The Fairfax divisions cover Australia media, includes national brands the Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian Financial Review, and metro titles The Age in Melbourne and the Canberra Times. Life media and events. A major events business and owner of Australian lifestyle brands including Good Food, Essential Kids, Essential Baby, and Traveller. This also includes Fairfax's joint venture, Drive, an online motors portal. Domain Group, a digital real estate business containing Domain.com, an online property portal. APM Price Finder, a property data business, and My Desktop, a SaaS platform for the real estate sector. Digital Ventures encompasses digital publisher Allure Media and partnerships with Huffington Post for HuffPost Australia and Nine Entertainment Co. for Stan, the video streaming service. New Zealand media, including national brand Star, Co. NZ and metro titles the Dominion Post in Wellington and the Press in Christchurch. In 2014, Fairfax entered into a joint venture partnership with Nine Entertainment Co. called StreamCo, the creators behind Australia's newest subscription video-on-demand service, Stan.com. Fairfax has a 54.5% interest in Macquarie Radio Network, following the merger of Fairfax's radio business with Macquarie's in 2015, with the leading news, talk and sports stations in Sydney and Melbourne. In 2015, Fairfax Media and the Huffington Post Media Group launched HuffPost.com, an Australian edition of the Huffington Post. HuffPost Australia is the Huffington Post's 15th site in the brand's expanding global presence. In December 2015, automotive digital business 112 and Fairfax's Drive.com announced the formation of a 50-50 joint venture in the online motor sector. Fairfax will license the Drive brand and Drive.com URL to 112, which currently owns and operates Themotorreport.com, a unique independent online car buyer resource. The group's chairman is Nick Falloon and the chief executive officer is Greg Highwood. History. John Fairfax purchased the Sydney Morning Herald in 1841. Several generations of the Fairfax family continued to control the company. Fairfax Media was founded by the Fairfax family as John Fairfax and Sons, later to become John Fairfax Holdings. The Fairfax family lost control of the company in December 1990. It was renamed from John Fairfax Holdings to Fairfax Media in 2007. The Australian Financial Review was founded in 1951. In that decade, Fairfax started two television stations, ATN and QTQ. Fairfax began expanding in the 1960s, acquiring, among others, The Age, the Newcastle Herald, and the Illawarra Mercury. In 1979, Rupert Murdoch attempted to take over rival the Herald and Weekly Times. Due to the costs of defending the takeover, Fairfax sold its television properties, including the Seven Network. In 1988, Fairfax sold its magazines to Australian Consolidated Press and discontinued its Sydney afternoon tabloid The Sun, transferring some of its content and the sponsorship of the City to Surf to its new Sunday tabloid The Sun Herald, which also replaced the broadsheet Sunday Herald. In 1987, Warwick Fairfax, then aged 26, controversially bought out his family's holdings in the company by borrowing heavily. He successfully took it over, but, on the 10th of December 1990, the company collapsed and a receiver was appointed, with company debts of $1.7 billion. By 1993, the company was relisted on the Australian Stock Exchange, and the two biggest shareholders of John Fairfax Holdings were the Canadian newspaper magnate Conrad Black and his Hollinger Group with 25%, and the Australian media mogul Kerry Packer and his publicly listed company, Publishing and Broadcasting Limited, with 15%, due to Australian government concerns over media consolidation that limited any single foreign shareholder holding more than 25% interest in national and metropolitan newspapers. After intense lobbying for the right to increase his stake, Black conceded defeat in 1996, selling his holding to the New Zealand corporate raider Brierley Investments, that was ultimately subject to the same restrictions. In April 2003, Fairfax acquired the publishing assets of New Zealand's Independent Newspapers Limited, including many of New Zealand's highest-profile newspapers. In July 2005, Fairfax acquired the RSVP dating site for $38 million. In August 2005, Fairfax's general classified site, created in March 2004, Cracker.com, consistently exceeded 500,000 unique visitors a month. In December 2005, Fairfax acquired Stays Pty Limited for $12.7 million. This investment proved to be very successful, as Stays was sold on the 27th of November 2013 for $220 million, far exceeding its estimated net debt of $154 million. In August 2005, Fairfax ended its 16-month search for a new chief executive officer, with David Kirk, a former Rugby Union World Cup winning captain of the New Zealand All Blacks, being appointed to replace departing CEO Fred Hilmer. David E. Kirk got the job ahead of Fairfax co Brian Evans and Doug Flynn, who took the top job at UK pest control company Rentokil after negotiations with Fairfax broke off. In March 2006, Fairfax acquired New Zealand auction website TradeMe Co. NZ for $700 million. On the 4th of March 2006, it was announced that Fairfax would purchase the Border Mail newspaper in Albury, Wodonga for $162 million. In October 2006, speculation began to grow that the company would be bought out and split up after the passage of changes to Australian media laws. Rival media company News Corp Australia purchased a 7.5% stake in the company at this time, with the stated aim of keeping Fairfax in one piece. On the 7th of December 2006, John Fairfax Holdings and Rural Press announced the beginning of the merger proceedings. Once merged, the new entity formed a publishing company worth $9 billion and resulted in regaining control of the Canberra Times, and through John B. Fairfax of Rural Press, saw the return of the Fairfax family to the company board. The company also gained a number of other regional newspapers, radio stations and websites, plus agricultural publications in various countries. On the 12th of January 2007, John Fairfax Holdings changed its name to Fairfax Media. On the 7th of March 2007, Fairfax Media announced a new website for Brisbane called the Brisbane Times. The website initially employed employed 14 journalists and was an attempt by Fairfax to break into the southeast Queensland market. On the 20th of March 2007, Fairfax Media launched a new business website, business.com, that aggregated feeds from the other news vehicles in the Fairfax stable as well as from the world's most respected news sources. It featured breaking news updated every 15 minutes. Also in 2007, Fairfax Media bought the radio assets of Southern Cross Broadcasting. Macquarie Media Group purchased Southern Cross for $1.35 billion and on-sold these assets to the Fairfax Group. On the 26th of August 2007, Kirkland Deputy CEO Brian McCarthy announced that 550 staff would be cut as part of a business improvement program. The staff reductions would take place in both Australia and New Zealand, with the latter country bearing the brunt of the cuts, with 160 full-time employees losing their jobs. On the 5th of December, David E. Kirk tendered his resignation, and on the 10th of December Brian McCarthy was appointed as CEO. A new campaign, Fair Go, Fairfax, Don't Discount Journalism, was launched by the MEAA in protest to the cuts, arguing that the jobs losses will affect quality journalism. As of May 2008, Fairfax Media had a market capitalization of over $5 billion. The number of printed edition readers has fallen since at least 2006, and the group's stock price has declined by more than 60% since 2007, to less than $2 billion by September 2011, and by 85% at June 2012. On the 11th of July 2007, Fairfax Media acquired the former radio assets of Southern Cross Broadcasting, 2UE Sydney, 3AW and Magic 1278 Melbourne, 04BC and 4BH Brisbane, and 6PR and 96 FM Perth. Graham Mott will continue in his role as General Manager of the Broadcast Radio Group under Fairfax. Mott indicated at the time of the acquisition that national syndication of programming would largely be replaced on the network with more localized syndication at a state level. Fairfax also acquired Satellite Music Australia as part of the SCB deal, who provide music channels to retailers as well as Foxtel and All-Star. Maytalk Datacasting Channel was officially purchased from Southern Cross Broadcasting on the 5th of November 2007, and ceased broadcasting on the 25th of February 2008. 2010 to present in late 2011, John B. Fairfax and his family investment company, Mariner Media, sold the remaining 9.7% stake in Fairfax Media for $189 million. The sale came after an earlier dispute between John B. Fairfax and Ron Walker, chairman of the board of Fairfax Media, which led to the very public departure of Walker. Continued poor performance of Fairfax Media in light of changing news services was cited as one of the reasons for the sale of Mariner Media's interests in Fairfax. John B. Fairfax had earlier stood down from the Fairfax board, and his son, Nick Fairfax, was reported to be discussing his future with the rest of the company board. In 2012, mining billionaire Gina Rinehart became Fairfax's biggest shareholder, purchasing a 14% stake in the company. Rinehart also sought a position on the Fairfax board. By June 2012, Rinehart had increased her stake in Fairfax Media to 18.67%, and was believed to seek 3 board seats and involvement in editorial decisions. There were reports that Rinehart sought to increase her total share to 19.99%, the maximum allowed before a takeover offer must be made. but provisions in Fairfax Media's insurance policy denied cover for directors owning more than 15%, so Reinhardt had to sell down to 14.99%. Reinhardt was denied a place on the board because she would not agree to Fairfax's Charter of Independence, and sold her stake in 2015. On the 18th of June 2012, as part of evolving to a sustainable model for its news media business, Fairfax Media announced it would cut 1,900 staff and begin to erect digital paywalls around its two main metropolitan news brands, the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. It also announced it was shifting to compact, or tabloid-sized editions of the broadsheet newspapers from March 2013, and that its two printing facilities at Chullora and Tullamarine would close. The changes, prompted by shrinking advertising revenue, were expected to generate $235 million in annual savings over 3 years. In 2012, Fairfax Media acquired Netus Pty Limited, a technology investment company which owned 85% of Allure Media, and purchased the remaining 15% from minority shareholders. Allure Media own a range of websites, including the Australian licenses for Business Insider, Lifehacker, Gizmodo, and Kotaku. In December 2014, Fairfax merged with Macquarie Radio Network. Under the deal, Fairfax gained a 55% share in Macquarie. A party may hold only 2 radio licenses in each market, so some stations including 2CH and the Macquarie Regional Radio Network were sold. In turn, 96FM Perth was sold to Australian Radio Network. The merger was completed in March 2015. In 2014, Fairfax Media founded online streaming company Stan with 9 Entertainment Co., investing $50 million into the joint venture. In 2015, Fairfax created a partnership with Huffington Post to launch HuffPost Australia. In December 2015, automotive digital business 112 and Fairfax's Drive.com announced the formation of a 50-50 joint venture in the online motor sector. Fairfax will license the Drive brand and Drive.com URL to 112, which currently owns and operates themotorreport.com, a unique independent online car buyer resource. In March 2016, many staff from its newspaper divisions went on a 4-day strike over planned job cuts of 120 editorial staff from the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age and the Australian Financial Review. All printed and digital editions continued during the action, but The Age website was down on 25th and 26th of March, adding to a 2-week outage earlier. In March, Properties Australia newspapers Fairfax Media publishes metropolitan, agricultural, regional and community newspapers, financial and consumer magazines. In Australia, mastheads include the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, the Australian Financial Review, the Canberra Times, the Sun Herald, and The Land. Fairfax publishes the second most circulated daily papers in both Melbourne and Sydney, The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald respectively. It also publishes a daily business tabloid, the Australian Financial Review. Fairfax also owns papers in major regional centres, including the Illawarra Mercury, the Newcastle Herald, the Border Mail, the Daily Advertiser, the Warrnambool Standard, the Courier and the Bendigo Advertiser. In addition, its subsidiary Fairfax Community Newspapers publishes 35 community newspapers serving suburban Victoria and New South Wales. As a result of its rural press acquisition, Fairfax has taken control of many newspapers including the Canberra Times and The Land. Magazines. Fairfax publishes a number of magazines, such as The Magazine, The Age Magazine and Good Weekend, which are distributed with the newspapers. In addition, the company publishes business-centered magazines including BRW, AFR Smart Investor, AFR Magazine, AFR Boss, CFO Australia, Miss and Asset. Digital. Fairfax owns a profitable Australian online subsidiary, Fairfax Digital, which was once known as the F2 Network. Fairfax publishes web editions of most of its newspaper titles, as well as digital-only news sites in southeast Queensland as the Brisbane Times, and in Western Australia as War Today. Both The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald produce a limited amount of video content, which is only available online. As a rival to Ninamzin's 9 News and Yahoo 7's7 News, Fairfax websites previously had non-exclusive licensing deals to replay news video content from broadcaster Network 10 and its former main news service 10 News at 5. Fairfax's deal with 10 has now discontinued when the news video content are now being shown on 10's catch-up service, 10 Play, which launched in late 2013. From 2014, Fairfax now have non-exclusive licensing deal with Channel 7 by using clips from 7 News with Mark Ferguson. Rural Press owns a range of similar classifieds and local newspaper websites. On the 21st of December 2012, Fairfax Media announced the acquisition of Netas Pty Limited, a technology investment company. Netas owned 85% of Allure Media. Fairfax purchased the remaining 15% of Allure Media from minority shareholders, resulting in Fairfax ownership of 100% of Allure Media. Allure Media own a range of websites, including the Australian licenses for Lifehacker, Gizmodo and Kotaku. Syndication. Fairfax Syndication manages the commercial licensing and distribution of text, photographic and multimedia content to media companies and commercial clients worldwide. Fairfax Syndication has enabled instant online licensing and has developed a customized syndication application (API) that allows existing and future syndication clients access to real-time content from multiple websites for immediate use on other platforms. The division also represents their image library and photo syndication service containing over 16 million images. New Zealand. The New Zealand subsidiary is Fairfax New Zealand Limited and publishes the stable of papers formerly owned by Independent Newspapers Limited. In New Zealand, mastheads include the Dominion Post, The Press, The Sunday Star Times, TV Guide, NZ House and Garden and New Zealand Fishing News, as well as agricultural publications and suburban newspapers in Auckland. It also owns over 60 community newspapers. On the 1st of September 2011, Fairfax New Zealand announced the launch of Fairfax New Zealand News, partly in response to the New Zealand Press Association closure, but also as part of its drive to improve its journalism. Fairfax New Zealand's websites form the Star.co.nz portal. Sites include news, employment, property, personals and shopping. Fairfax also owns the Cuisine website as part of its ownership of the magazine of the same name. Magazines. Rural Press Limited.